Hello there folks, Andrew Griffiths here. How you doing? Another weekly video from on top of Mount Wellington again. Today what I want to talk about is the concept of shining the light on others. And I see at the moment again, and this has been happening for a long time, and I share an example where I did it as well. You know, this one-dimensional kind of content where people are just, you know, this is an article by me, this is about my program, this is about something in my business, this is about something to do with my industry, bang, 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 bang. It's all this very one-dimensional kind of approach, and they're not really getting any cut through. They're not really getting any kind of engagement. And the problem is one-dimensional content doesn't really elicit much engagement. Now, I had a site a few years back, and some of you know, watching this, I'm sure you're contributors, called Smallville. And we had lots and lots of people, like a lot of people, creating this great content, these great articles, and we were pushing them out. And we had like 1,000, 1,500 articles on the site. Great articles, great content, and statistically getting really well read, right? But no engagement, right? And that's an interesting thing because people didn't have a need to engage. They went to the site to absorb the information and then move on. But there's a kind of empty feeling when you go to a site and there's no comments, there's no likes, there's no human interaction. And I talk a lot about this with my coaching clients right at the moment, saying you're creating one-dimensional content. And it's very functional, it's very good, but it doesn't encourage people to interact. Okay, and so we've got to get better at doing that. So if you're just telling people all this stuff, you're never going to get that engagement, and I think that we've got to identify and ask ourselves, hand on heart, is that what we're doing? Just this one-dimensional kind of content that isn't encouraging people to respond. How do you create content that engages? Okay, fantastic. Good question, I'm glad I asked it. All right, for starters, what you've got to do is you've got to make it personal. You've got to let people in. You've got to, you know, share your story, share your experience. My answer for pretty much everything these days is let people in, share your stories. Okay, you've got to ask questions. You've got to ask questions of your community so that it warrants a response. Now, you're not going to get 1 million people answering the question straight away, but they start to engage a little bit more. You've got to mix up that type of content. In my community building program, I talk about a content sweet spot that we all have, and that's the kind of content we always do. People ultimately switch off. So what you've got to do is you've got to be mixing it up. You've got to have content that you share. The wind blew us over there. You've got to have content that you share. You've got to have content that you've created. This might be a post that you've seen. Oh my God, this is great for my community. It might be free stuff that you're giving away. It might be an event that's coming up. It might be shining the light on someone else who's doing something great. If you go to my Facebook page and look through my content, my timeline, you'll see that the content is really mixed up. I'm not saying you can't talk about what it is that you do or your products or your services, you know, or even what it is your thing is, writing content for it. What I'm saying is we've got to be mixing it up a lot. I get a lot of engagement. Right, and the reason that I do is because of that, mixing my content up so that it's always going to be appealing and interesting to some members of my community. So right now, a post about wombats is going to engage with some. A post about a retreat is going to engage with some, not all, okay? But you're mixing it up enough that you always get engagement from some members of your community, whether it be on LinkedIn, Facebook, you know, any of the platforms that you might have, okay? So that's really, I think, the kind of moral to the story here is about one-dimensional content is kind of the enemy, and that's what we need to be kind of making a point of doing something about. So again, hand on heart, you know, is your content one-dimensional? Are you not getting engagement? Likes, comments, etc., shares? If you're not, then I guarantee it's because of that. All right, and so now you've got to be able to kind of turn around and mix it up a little bit and go, right, so what we need is a much greater diversity and variety of the content that I'm creating. All right, folks, thanks very much. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week.